Good morning. Yesterday in the service we were thinking about running our race for God, and this morning I want us to think about Psalm 139 verses 23 and 24, which says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." Last Thursday, Bernadette opened up this psalm for us, and she pointed out to us how God knows everything about us, how the start of the psalm says, "Lord, you've searched me and you know me." And it's amazing, isn't it, how the psalm starts in that way, where the psalmist is acknowledging truth, that God knows everything about them. But by the end of the psalm, the psalmist is actually saying, "Search me, God, know my heart." And this really encourages me to be honest with God. It's clear that the Bible, it's clear rather that the psalmist is not just aware of truth, that God knows everything about them, but that actually they want that and they desire that. They don't want to hide things from God. And I don't know about you, that really challenges me, because sometimes there are things in my life that maybe I don't really want God to know. And I really want to encourage you today to be honest with God, to pray this prayer and to allow God to search you. Wherever you're at in your race for God today, to allow Him in and to speak into your life and to encourage you and challenge you this day. However, I don't believe that the Bible points out that that's just a one-way or even a two-way thing, our walk with God. I believe that our race for God is a shared race to run with others. A few years ago, me and a friend were taking a walk, and we were just catching up and sharing what was going on in each other's lives. And we were talking about this psalm, and I just said to him how I'd started to pray these verses that God would know me. And I suggested maybe that would be a good thing for him to do. I was aware that he was struggling with a few things in his life, and I was encouraging him just to be honest with God, and perhaps that we could look at those verses together and be honest together. And he said no. And I was like, oh wow. Now he was happy to be honest with me, but he said, look, God knows what's going on in my life, and I don't want to really talk to him about it because of the difficulties that he was going through. And I don't know about you, I don't know where you're at today, but I want to encourage you not just to be honest with God, but to reach out to somebody that you trust. That might be a close friend. Jesus himself, on the night he was betrayed, when he went to the garden, took his 3 closest friends, asked them to pray, and Peter, James and John heard Jesus say that my soul is overwhelmed to the point of death. Jesus was not just being honest with God about where he was at, he was being honest with his closest friends. And I believe that in our race for God, that God wants us to be honest with him, but also with those that we're able to trust too. And if you don't feel like there is a friend in your life who you could be honest with, perhaps reach out to a life group leader or one of the care team, maybe one of the leadership team, to encourage you today. But if nothing else, let's remember today that the Father's arms are open wide, and regardless as to what's going on in our life today, in our race for him, that he loves us, he's for us, and there's grace for us today. So today, why don't you pray? Lord, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting.